right, then we begin today's program on the business side of showbiz. So guys, buckle up and let's get down to business. The controversy that trails the Creative Nigeria Summit hosted by the Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism, Lai Mohammed, has diverted the direction of the conversation, taking away the focus on some of the cogent points raised at the summit. While not one that is easily distracted, we bring you some of the lofty ideas shared, starting with Yewande Sadiku from the Nigerian Investment Promotion and also the executive producer of the screen adaptation of the critically acclaimed novel Half of a Yellow Sun.
We think about the creative industry in the context of, it may be 1.42% of GDP, but it has the potential to be much more than that. And the value that it translates to is more than you can capture in financial terms. It is valuable as an educational tool because you remember maybe 40% of what you read, but you remember 88% of what you creatively engage with. The government has recognized this industry as key, and it is referred to explicitly in the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan as to what expectations government would like to see from it. An increase in film production by 15% on an annual basis, export in videos to generate $1 billion in foreign exchange by 2020, and an improvement in the enforcement of intellectual property rights for works produced in Nigeria. Now, if we talk about what government can do, I think it'll be useful if government first understands what the value of the industry is, not just from a GDP perspective, but the value on a number of measures, from an economic perspective, from a social impact perspective, from an employment perspective. So an impact study, if you like, to fully understand the value, so that when government release policies, they're based on research, on data, and making informed decisions that will add value to the industry where the industry most needs it.
In recent times, the movie industry has benefited from the Nolly Fund project of the Bank of Industry and has been credited for financing some of the big budget flicks around, including Kulia Falayo CEO, Jade Oshibaru's Isokan, and many others. Within their brief period of active involvement with the film business, the fund administrators have strong opinions about how the business models and attitude of practitioners must change to help the industry grow.
We've had issues with content production. However, in reviewing the performances, we've also identified the gaps, and we're ready to address those gaps so that future projects will perform excellently well, like other projects from other subsectors within the industry. So far, our risk asset base in Bank of Industry under the creative industry is close to 11 billion. And for other subsectors, we don't have any non-performing projects. But however, within the content production subsector, we've had issues. And in reviewing these issues, we identified that individuals within the creative industry seem not to understand the relationship between your business and the bank, ability to meet obligations, and to clearly understand what your bankers expect from you.
In 2009, the United Nations Education, Social, Cultural Organization, UNESCO, predicted that Nollywood would soon rival the Indian movie industry dubbed Bollywood. Many years after, the Nigerian film industry is yet to measure up to its Indian counterpart. Sanjay Salil, a media entrepreneur from India, however, believes the industry still has the potentials to reach greater heights, but conscious effort and investment are required to catalyze the industry.
Actually, when I look at Nigeria, I see this is India, say, 15, 20 years ago. And many of you might be aware of a film in India called Sholay. It was the biggest blockbuster India produced. It was 1975. And the revenue of that film, the cost of production of that film was 3 crores, which is in today's term less than $500,000, and the revenue of that film was 15 crores, which is less than $3 million in today's term. And that film ran in theaters for, I think, more than 2 years across the country. Now, and I will talk about that revenue and that ecosystem, how India does its film today and financing. Now, 2 films in India has done close to $300 million each in just a period of 6 months, last 6 months. And this is so much to do about how the funding was done. And as the Honorable Finance Minister said, beg, borrow, and steal. Pretty much that was the formula in India also, that if you know someone, if you are a very established film producer, you have to go to the distributors, they will fund your films, and if you don't do well, many of them committed suicide. Producers, many of them, because there was no other avenue to really look at how do they run even their households. But it changed from there to a very, very structured economy. And when I was looking at the number, and I was amazed that the creative industry contributes to 1.4% of Nigerian GDP. That's a huge number. For the GDP of any country, Indian film industry or Indian media industry, which is almost $18–19 billion in a year, that contributes only 0.5% of Indian GDP.
Tonya Princewill, who is the executive producer of the blockbuster movie 76, which is still the only Nollywood movie to earn a mainstream Hollywood distribution, stressed on the importance of clear government policies for the industry to attract sure investments.
Well, I think when you're looking at filmmaking, you have to look at it from an end-to-end perspective. So there's content creation, absolutely, but before you even think about content creation, you have to look about the infrastructure. Who are you making the movie for? What's the audience? And one of the biggest challenges we have is that from an end-to-end perspective, you look at festivals, you look at cinemas, you look at different platforms, whether it be pay TV, SVOD like the Netflix or Amazons of this world, and you ask yourself, what is government policy across the board? And there's no clear policy. If you want to rely on policies that were written 15 years ago, then you're just talking about paper. We don't see any active policy. If there was an active policy on festivals, it means there would be an active policy on the markets for film. So if I'm going to a festival, other people who wanted to purchase films would come to that festival. So there's no clear policy on festivals. Again, there's no clear policy on film production. So the absence of policy means that investors, they are worried. What should they invest? When should they invest? How should they invest? How much should they invest? Those questions can't be answered because the government has not been playing what you might call a proactive, positive role as far as the film industry is concerned. And I'm glad that they're looking at making a difference now, and they seem to be wanting to address that.